I think obviously I'm for it. I think it would be hard to be against it. I mean, that's one of the foundations of our freedoms to, you know, to not have authorities be able to burst into your house and root through your things without establishing a basis for it first. So yes, I'm for the First Amendment. That's generally where it is the most important in criminal cases, where, but uh, only because that's where it's needed now because it's enforced, and so you don't have the kinds of things that happened that were the basis for passing the First Amendment in the first place, where uh, people could just run into your house and take over. And so nobody tries to do that anymore. But in terms of criminal cases, if they have to get their evidence in criminal cases in the right way, and they have to get it with a warrant, and they can't. And so if they don't do it right and don't get a warrant, then the evidence can't be used. And so the Fourth Amendment is very important to criminal clients and to uh, those who have done something that they shouldn't have done, because the if it isn't followed, the evidence can be kept out, and they may be able to get off the hook for something because the evidence couldn't be used. And as that really doesn't happen as much as people think it does, because usually what happens is there's only one piece of evidence that is excluded in a case, and the prosecution can probably get a verdict anyway. Or there might be one piece of evidence that's excluded that they can't use, and so maybe they negotiate a plea, bring drug dogs through the school or whatever, and that's all permitted under the Fourth Amendment, because you have noticed that you have no reasonable expectation of privacy in the school locker because it's not yours. I mean, it's yours to use, but you don't have the same kind of expectation of privacy as you would if you had a closet at home, in terms of somebody coming in and looking at what you have. There's a lot of nuances to that. I mean, different circumstances, but that's, generally the Fourth Amendment is helpful to a lot of people. Like I say, I get it occasionally on a question about can we do this or do that. Your question here says, when has it helped or hurt a client? I mean, obviously, if it's a criminal client and you are able to exclude evidence, it obviously helps them. Um, I don't know that the Fourth Amendment, I can't really think how it would hurt the client, because it really is something that protects the client. And you have here, what do you think America would be like without the Fourth Amendment? It would be very different. I mean, it was certainly, even before the Bill of Rights was passed and added to the Constitution, the concept of warrants and was still established in the law, not quite the way it is done now, but even our legal system came from the British or the English common law, and the idea was there. It was not cast in a constitution, but when it was added in the Bill of Rights, it's been kind of a hallmark of our democracy. And like I say, people would be afraid to do things. They'd be afraid to speak. They'd be afraid to do what they wanted to do if they thought that the authorities could just come into their house and root through their stuff and take stuff without any kind of due process or warrant. So I think it would be a fundamental. I mean, all of the Bill of Rights is very important, but even the First Amendment or the Second Amendment would not be as important, or as would not be as be some law that was violated, And there may be laws passed that would permit, under certain circumstances, if someone was mentally ill or they had illegally obtained weapons or something, that the police could seize them. But it still requires the process of law first, so that they're protected. So I think it's very important to America. I think we would be a very different country without it.